Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
So welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive. And my topic today is about substituting addictions, because that's what we do so often. If we're not eating, we're doing something else. And usually it's something that has consequences as well. So it might be fewer consequences than eating and gaining weight, but there's a better way. And I'm going to dig into that today. And if you haven't joined the Secret Sauce group, please jump over to Facebook to type in the Secret Sauce to End Emotional Eating, and you can join us in the Secret Sauce group. I'm recording live from there right now. So once you join, you'll be able to join, be a part of the live broadcast of this show, ask questions, comment, and be among your tribe, other people who are really excited and really intentional about overcoming emotional eating, because guess what? It doesn't just happen. It does not just happen. Have you noticed? Have you noticed that just wishing you were thinner, just wishing this problem would go away, hasn't done it? Well, that's because it can't. You know, it does take intention. It does take really, it takes everything we've got, to be honest. This is a problem that does not get up and go away on its own. If you've struggled chronically with food and weight, you know that it could end up into a multi-decade struggle. And I know a lot of people tuning in right now know about that. I know I did. I tried for years to overcome my food issues. I didn't know it was emotional eating at the time, but you know, diets and exercise programs and pills and potions and lotions, all those things, you know, those are things I tried and nothing worked because I didn't go deep enough. And so that's why it turns into a decade-long struggle, many decades struggle, because we keep beating our head against the wall, following the wrong solutions. Okay, solutions that aren't solutions at all. You know, you're not going to get where you need to go by dieting, by following another food plan, you know, by believing it's somehow, you know, has to do with something, you know, physical, like your thyroid, your metabolism, or your hormones. Those play a part for sure, but 9 times out of 10, you still need to address the emotional eating. And that's really what we love to do here. So yeah, this topic is important because many times if you look back, when you've been trying to eat healthy and have you been abstaining from the foods that you know trigger you, perhaps the ooey gooey chewy foods, the brownies and the Doritos and the salty and the sweet, and you know, I can't even say what my favorite foods were. It was like if it was sugar, starch, and fat, those were my best food groups, you know. And if you could get them all in one item, yahoo, all the better, in a bakery item or something, you know. So I loved all different kinds of foods, but I definitely loved the crunchy, salty, as well as the creamy sweet. So I ate everything, and I ate them in large quantities. So I was a binge eater. Frequently got out of control, and just, I mean, I just would go to town, and it was never my intention to eat everything. You know, it was never my intention to sit in front of the TV and gorge myself to the point of feeling absolutely disgusting and sick and like I wanted to pass out, you know, and I would pass out, you know, or even worse, wanted to die. Usually that came a couple days later when all of a sudden I gained 3 or 5 pounds, and I was like, oh my God, this has to stop. Okay, so when I would do that, you know, it didn't happen. Like I didn't intentionally set out to do that. I did it because I lost control, and I didn't realize that once I started, I couldn't stop. I didn't make that connection. That may be your history as well. You know, you might be just subscribing to the just one theory that you're going to have just one, you're going to have one bowl of ice cream or one bowl of cereal, but you don't stop. And so it's just really important to know that that's really what an emotional eater is somebody who not only eats over their emotions, but loses control and doesn't have really control over the amount that they're going to end up eating. And certainly emotional eating can morph into food addiction. And if you haven't taken the quiz on my website, the emotional eating quiz, take that. Go to healyourhunger.com, take the quiz and find out where you are in the spectrum, because it is a spectrum between emotional eating and food addiction. I was at the high end of that spectrum, total food addict. I could pack away 4,000 or 5,000 calories in a sitting. It was disgusting. It was like unintentional, and it hurt so bad. So find out if you're a food addict or an emotional eater. Neither are good things. If you've experienced them, they don't feel good. And sometimes if you're an emotional eater and you don't address it, it can, basically progress into food addiction. So I think I sort of digressed there, but it's important to be said. But what I want to talk about here is when you're trying to be good, and as a coping mechanism, you substitute addictions, okay? And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I mean, for me, when I was younger, when I would be on a diet and I'd be trying to be good, I would basically smoke, okay? So I enjoyed at a time, this is in high school, but I would have cigarettes on the ready for when I was trying to diet. And I loved dieting. I loved results of dieting. I hate dieting, but I loved the results when I started feeling thinner and more pretty. And then I would smoke cigarettes to keep it going, to be able to sustain it, because I couldn't do without my ooey gooey chewy foods without having a substitute. So cigarettes were my substitute. I wasn't really a big smoker. I didn't regularly smoke. I did it like as a little treat. Instead of having my brownies or my cookies or ice cream, I would smoke instead, and it was like a little reward for me. But the fact is, I needed something. And if you find that you're needing something to replace the food with, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about substituting an addiction. Another example is shopping. Oftentimes when I would be losing weight, I'd not only be obsessed with what clothes I could now fit into, and also obsessed with myself and looking more beautiful and feeling more beautiful. So I would go shop and I would spend money on clothes because not only did I want to look better and all of a sudden I had the ability to fit into these clothes, but also because I was trying to fill that void that was being, getting bigger and bigger. It became gaping, this void, because I didn't have food to fill it. So I would fill it with shopping instead. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about substituting addictions. It could be anything. Spending money is a big one for emotional eaters. We kind of binge on spending the way we binged on food. It's a very similar relationship with money as to food. We use it to abuse ourselves for sure. But there's other things that we can do. TV's a huge one. I mean, gosh, how many times have I zoned out on television, as a way of coping with not overeating? Like I just wanted to check out. Or sleeping. How many times did I substitute eating with sleeping? Just trying to get the time to pass because I was, hungry and didn't know what to do. If I wasn't eating, I just want to check out. So many other ththings, maybe overworking. Perhaps you, again, this is back to the shopping, but you're online shopping. Perhaps you are, a big avid book reader, but you find you binge on books because you want to pass the time. There's so many different ways that we can, sex, of course, whether it be masturbation or whether it be, dating or on the online dating sites, just serially, going on dates, or sex. If you have a partner, perhaps you get more interested in sex when you don't have the food and you're starting to feel thinner and more beautiful, and like all of a sudden all these sexual feelings are coming up, and so then you go overboard with that. I mean, I find that people with addictive, tendencies can get addicted to anything, and that's certainly true for me. But what about it? What's wrong with it, for one thing? Is this such a bad thing? I mean, some people literally, dietitians or nutritionists or therapists or diet workout coaches or whatever, will, like, in good faith, they'll with all good intentions, they'll tell you to substitute. Like, it'll actually be a recommendation that you substitute when you're not eating. Reward yourself in some other way. And I have a little problem with that because rewarding yourself is one thing, but substituting an addiction is another. And the reason why it's not sound advice is because nothing's being addressed. You see, we're eating in the first place to cover up emotions. And when we're not eating, those emotions are emerging, right? They're emerging and they're wreaking havoc on our lives. And we feel out of control. Like we don't know what to do with ourselves now that we have more feelings. And so we tamp them down with another addiction, cigarettes or coffee or movies or porn or masturbation or shopping or, TV, all these different things. We try to stuff those feelings in a different way, but that is not a solution. That is not going to get you where you need to go. as I said, 98% of all diets fail because people can't deal with what comes up. And though you may find an alternative to eating, in which case you can still keep losing weight, that will not last. Okay, that alternative addiction, that other thing that you turn to, or many things that you turn to, are short-lived. Because as an emotional eater, nothing's going to work for me as well as food is. I mean, there was a time when I would drink like a jillion sodas. Like I had cases of sodas just to get through my diet, because I knew if I wasn't eating, I was going to need to be drinking something. Very orally fixated, this one here. So the bottom line is, I was using the soda to try to keep myself in check. And so chances are you're doing the same thing. Gum is another one. Now, why is this a problem? It's a problem because you're not dealing with the real issues. And if you don't, you will ultimately be eating again. Okay? That's why it's a problem. I mean, it seems like a good suggestion. Just do something else, but the problem is, just distracting yourself is not a good weight loss plan. Okay, distraction is not a good weight loss plan, because what you're distracting yourself from must be addressed. Like you can't just go la 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 and just bury your head in the sand or distract, because if you do that, you'll have to keep distracting forever. Those feelings that you're distracting yourself from are going to chase you forever. And that's why the solution is to stop and face them and not substitute addictions. Now, I know it's easy to do this. I know it's easy to use. I mean, we are a culture of users, right? Nobody wants to deal with anything uncomfortable. And I still struggle with this myself. I feel like the last frontier for me, or the thing that I do use at times, are drinks that are sweetened. And, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I have one drink that I love, and I limited it to one a day just so I don't use it to cover up my emotions. But this past week, I went up to like 3 and sometimes 4 a day, and they're expensive drinks. So it's like not good, and it's not sustainable for me. But I did notice I was emotionally drinking, not emotionally eating, thank God, but I was emotionally, relying on these drinks. And that's not a good plan. Now, granted, I still had plenty of feelings left over. So they didn't really, these are sugar-free, non-calorie, very 1 or 2 calorie drinks, sweetened with erythritol or stevia or both. And the bottom line is I leaned on them, but I still had a lot of feelings. I had a lot of grief this weekend, or this whole week. And I dealt with it for the most part, but I did take a little edge off with those drinks, in full disclosure. I was leaning on those drinks because I was in so much excruciating pain. And I just noticed that I wanted a little bit more comfort. And so, in what ways are you looking for comfort? And is it keeping you from feeling and dealing? In which case, is it going to run into trouble? Now, the drinks, I'm back down to, 1 or 2 a day now. I'd like to get back down to 1 now that my storm is over. But, I need to feel my feelings. And if I don't feel my feelings, I will be using. And the problem with substituting also is ultimately, as I said, we will go back to the original problem. I sure as hell don't want that. So what are you using? Are you substituting addictions? And is that the best solution? And I'm here to tell you it's not. It's not, because running from our feelings really gets us into trouble, because ultimately we need the food to do that, and we will stay running forever if we don't stop and deal with them. There's a great saying, which is feel, deal, and heal, and another one, face, embrace, and erase. And that's really what we need to do. The food is a symptom. So the reason why we're eating has to do with deeper causes. Those must be addressed. And, that's what we do at Heal Your Hunger. At Heal Your Hunger, we don't focus on food and food plans and all this kind of thing, because we know it's a symptom. So my clients are digging deep, and they are, through my system, they are addressing and healing the underlying causes, and they're breaking free. They're no longer compelled to eat because they have a way to deal with those causes and conditions. They have a way to look within. They have a system for addressing these things and getting rid of them. It's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see them wake up. I mean, they're waking up and they're becoming conscious, and they are facing those feelings head on. And it doesn't happen overnight. They might do a little comforting themselves here and there with perhaps other things. But they're getting day by day more and more conscious and less compelled to eat. And that's really what I want for you, because it's so, so important that we don't continue to substitute addictions, because it's like a lateral move. It's not progression. It's not progressing towards a healthier end. It's really just, another way of putting it is, it's switching deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, we're still going down. We're just on a different part of the deck or in a different chair. Okay. So that's really what we're talking about. We're substituting addictions. We're still addicted. And you see this in, 12-step meetings, in Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, people are sitting outside of AA meetings smoking, and then they go into the meetings and they're drinking, 5 cups of coffee. That is substituting addictions. Alcoholics are great at sex addiction, that drives them. And so they're hooking up in meetings, or they're out of control, doing the deeper work, the steps as are laid out for them. They will be substituting addictions forever. They'll be smoking forever. They'll be in, credit card debt forever. So whatever somebody's primary addiction is, if they stop that, but they don't go deeper and heal, it's game over. Even if they don't go back to that addiction, they will have lives of chaos and wreckage. It's just that with alcoholics, they can put the plug in the jug and not go back to the drink, and still they can do lots of other things obsessively and compulsively. But we are not like alcoholics in that everything leads back to the food. We have to eat 3 times a day. We can't put the plug in the jug. So substituting addictions for us always leads back to the food. Whereas for an alcoholic, they might not ever drink again. They just might live, a compromised life by continuing to substitute addictions and never really dealing with their real stuff. So here's the deal. There is a way out. The good news is you don't have to be switching deck chairs on the Titanic. You can get to a place where you feel peaceful and whole and free, and you're not compelled to do something, and you're facing your emotions. And I tell you, I faced a lot of emotions this past weekend. I cried a lot of the weekend. I had just had a lot of grief coming up, and I went for it. And now I'm free. I feel free. I feel like, God, I'm not like, I don't have this grief coming over me. If I do, I'll go back to the crying. If the grief comes over me, I'll go with it, and that's really, really important. Feel, deal, and heal. But because I did do a lot of feeling and dealing and healing, I feel a lot more surrendered, and there may be a time when, I don't drink my drink at all, but it was a little bit extra comfort. There's no question about it, but it didn't bury anything. It didn't bury anything. I had a lot of tears this weekend, but I'm grateful for going through it. And the faster you go through it, the faster you get over it. Super, super important to know. We always think that if we face this stuff, it's going to overtake us and we'll never get through it. But that's not my experience. My experience is if you go, face into the storm, then you will, so much more quickly heal and get over the storm, get through the storm. So I'm here to support you. What is it you use to substitute? What are your addictions that you substitute with? Do you notice this pattern in yourself? I'd love to hear about it and continue the conversation here. So that's in the group in Facebook. And if you're listening to the podcast right now, jump over to the Facebook and comment, because we'd love to check in with you as well. So thank you so much. I love you so much. There's no cure, but there is recovery. And I want to just really offer that to you. And I do, if people feel like, if you're listening and you feel like you need extra support, definitely reach out. Go to the Facebook group, message me, and let's have a chat. And I do offer free breakthrough sessions if you want to really hone in on something specific and get my help. Okay, thank you so much. Sending you lots of love. Take care.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.